up the Bears. Love anytime I can talk about the Bears, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good.
No presentation tonight?
No presentation tonight, thank God. That's all over with, that's done with.
They gave you the night off, huh?
Yeah, for now. Gotta do some homework tomorrow morning, but on the tail end of sophomore year, so it's fun.
That's good. All right, guys, we are going to hash out a little bit tonight. Are the Bears, I want to say finished, but have the Bears completed their rebuild? And it's a question I don't really like an answer to be honest with you, because I don't feel, and I think we're fortunate enough to say Ryan Poles is kind of in the same boat as probably the rest of us. I don't feel as if they're ever really done rebuilding. You know, you can always fix holes in your roster. You probably always analyze which coaches are worth sticking around and which coaches aren't. So I think that as long as Ryan Poles is here, there's going to be changes. That's with any good sports organization. You don't want too much turnover because that obviously means you're probably not winning a whole lot of games. But yeah, I think no matter how good the Bears are, there's always room for improvement, just like any good sports organization. And they do have, I think, 9 draft picks next year. So no matter what, you're still going to see, as good as this starting roster, I should say, gets, as good as the starting roster gets, the Bears still need depth, in my opinion. And I think once you've kind of plugged all the holes in your starting roster, that's where you got to lean next, because most good teams in the NFL have rotations, right? Rotation on the defensive line. We're starting to see a little bit of rotation on the offensive line. The Bears have been doing it probably just because they haven't had the talent there, but you want to give guys a breather in today's NFL. You want to give guys a chance to sit on the bench for a few minutes. So you want guys that can fill in, even outside of injuries. We want guys that can fill in for your starters. And the Bears, I think, are still quite a ways away from having that. But they're heading in the right direction, guys, as we all seen. And in this draft, they seem to improve at least 3 positions that will probably be starters on their roster. I think Torrey Taylor's for sure going to win that job. Rome Odunze is going to be a starter. I know Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, theoretically the starters, but in a 3 spread, Rome Odunze is a starting caliber receiver. And then, obviously, the most important piece on any NFL roster, they upgraded the quarterback position, which is something we haven't been able to say even after the last 2 guys they drafted. Adam, how do you feel about where the Bears are at in their rebuild?
Oh, man. It's so freaking exciting after the draft for us to be able to talk about this team in a way that we haven't for so long. And it's easy for us to say, yeah, the rebuild's done. It's here. It's over. Because of how much progress, as you've been watching since Poles took over from 2022 to 2023 to now, to watch his 3rd draft take place, it's like, yeah, this team is so good compared to where it was. But you do, just like you said, you do realize we have 9 picks next year, and he wasn't in that same position this draft to try to extrapolate more draft picks in a desperation way. He was taking those guys that are going to be surefire starters, because it doesn't have to be done this year. You have a rookie quarterback coming in, and there are holes to fill. But one of the nicest things to me is there's really only 3 or 4 legit main contracts that are coming up at the end of this year. I mean, you got Jack Sanborn, you got Tevin Jenkins. I have him on a file that I've been working on, but I post him on another video too. But really, there's not a ton. Keenan Allen, obviously, there's not a ton of expiring contracts. So yeah, while there's some needs, next year I think is really where this rebuild is complete, because we do have some more needs. We don't have a tight end 3. We need a center. We need another defensive end. We need another defensive tackle. So there's some more needs, but where we are compared to 2 years ago, this team is absolutely rebuilt. And I use it in past sense. We are rebuilt, but there's still room to go 100%. So it's not done yet. But, man, this team looks so much fun. This is going to be such a fun year for Bears fans.
Yeah, I think the last guy that you had, I did actually watch your last podcast. The last guy that was expiring contract that might make an impact, I don't know, the Bears are actually pretty deep at this position now, is Khalil Herbert.
Yeah.
Michael, how do you feel about the Bears' current situation in regards to their roster? Is it rebuilt?
Yes, I think, but I think it depends on what your definition of a rebuilt team is. I mean, are you a playoff contender? Are you a Super Bowl contender? Or is it just you have a foundational roster set? If you're talking just straight foundational roster, yeah, they have it. that's in place. Obviously, there's some holes. You want to say the interior O-line, maybe their D-line too in the trenches. But outside of that, it seems to be most of this roster is set for not just next year, but also the future. But if you're talking about rebuild over as a playoff contender, yeah, I think they could be a playoff contender. Super Bowl, I don't think they're there yet. Not yet. I think give it another offseason. As Adam mentioned, you have these expiring contracts, but also as over the cap saying they have $77 million to address those contracts and even go sign other free agents similar to what Houston did in this offseason. They made big splashes because their rebuild's over. They have their rookie quarterback. You capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think the same was it Danielle Hunter and a couple of big
Hunter
names.
was their big
They
guy.
obviously made the trade for Stephon Diggs. So I agree with you. They're kind of going all in on this upcoming 2024 NFL season. So in regards to what you just said, Michael, then let me ask you guys this. If Caleb Williams is the player we're projecting him to be, and he's got 1 or 2 years under his belt, let's just say hypothetically he's got some experience, is the roster the Bears have in 2024 good enough to contend for a championship?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. When you've got the offense we do and a defense that ended the end of last year, the last, whatever it was, 6-7 weeks is number 1 in most statistical categories. And then, all you're doing is adding to that because the defense didn't get worse. If someone says Yannick Ngakoue leaving made us worse, or we could still re-sign him.
I know how you feel about him, Adam.
I don't hide my feelings on players or my analysis on them at all. But more importantly, like the rookies that got even better through the year, Dexter at the end of the year, I challenge anyone to find a 3-tech that played better than Dexter the last 5 games of the season. Not even Jalen Carter was better. Probably equally as good, but not better. Tyreek Stevenson, the second half of the year, didn't get nearly enough credit for what he did. I made a video on that. I think it's entitled The Bears Cornerback Room is Stacked. And he played just as good as Jalen Johnson, which is ridiculous. Like for anybody to play as well as Jalen Johnson. And then Kyler Gordon was coming on strong. That secondary is stacked. So the defense is solid. And then you add to that 2 solid wide receiver ones, which should be. I mean, we don't know. Rome's a rookie, but every single analyst you're listening to is saying that he doesn't even have a comp. I mean, people are trying to give him comps like Devontae Adams because that's what they're – but he doesn't really have a comp. 75% contested catch and low drop rate, his high point, the way he tracks the ball. Like he's going to be special. And so – yeah, could this team compete for the playoffs? Yes. The answer to that, they should. I mean, last year we were on the verge of the playoffs with a team that's not nearly as stacked as this one. And then once you get into the playoffs, it's really anything can happen. Like it really is. If you're a playoff team, I mean, look at the Lions. We handled the Lions for 7/8 of the quarters we played against them. If we got matched up against them or we just have the right team's number, you can be in the NFC Championship game and then you're in the Super Bowl. So I mean, it's not crazy. It's crazy to expect that. It's not crazy to say it could happen. So it could happen.
And I agree with you, Adam. Once a team, it's like once you're in the playoffs, let's be honest, guys. In any sport, once you're in the playoffs, anything is possible. I mean, look, like I don't want to get too far off track, but we're watching the current NBA. I don't think the Timberwolves was a team that anybody would have pegged for an NBA championship winner this year, but they're 2 games above the team that won a championship, the defending champs from last year. So once you get there, it's really all it takes. And we saw Houston last year. We saw Green Bay last year. 2 teams who were kind of, with Jordan Love being a quarterback now, 2 teams that were pretty fresh to the playoffs. And they both made it past – they made it into the next round. They both won a game. So like you said, Adam, it's really about just winning your division and getting there. That's the most important part. And I think Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are pretty aware of that. They've said that a lot, that the thing they're focused on most is just winning their division. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. So the original question was like, if Caleb is as good as advertised, are the Bears Super Bowl contenders, right?
Yeah.
Was that thing? Yeah.
Yeah. For this season. Yeah.
Yeah. For this season. Yeah. Because a quarterback as good as Caleb Williams elevates his teammates. They become better because of him. Even the defense will become better because of him. We saw that with Patrick Mahomes. I hate to bring up Mahomes because of how on another plane he is compared to every other quarterback in football. But it's a good baseline to kind of see what an elite quarterback does. I mean, they had one of the worst wide receiver cores in football, and it didn't matter. Like they had a glaring hole on offense and still were able to win the Super Bowl, and they didn't look great in the beginning half of the season. I think even I caught myself getting guilty of thinking that they didn't have a shot really, and another team more well-rounded would beat them, but a well-rounded team did not beat them because they had an elite quarterback that raised the talent level on that team. And I think there are some holes on the Bears roster, but again, when you have a quarterback that good, they mask those holes. And I think that's what would happen if Caleb is as good as advertised.
I think the cool thing is, though, like, I don't know if I see it the same way. You were referred to as the stat guy, and I love that. I love stat guys. But I look at Jordan Love, and I look at even CJ Stroud as guys that were more supported by their team than they supported the team. And then Pat Mahomes is definitely one who supported the team more than the team supported him. And I don't mean that as in Jordan Love and CJ Stroud are terrible, because that gets misconstrued sometimes. They just weren't the reason. The team, the scheme, the coaching. I really think Matt LaFleur is the second best head coach, even offensive mind in the game of football right now, which is why he keeps having our number, and which kills us, and I hate it. But they're more uplifted. They don't have great adjusted completion percentages. They don't have great poor pass rating. They really have good scheme fits, and they have good, receivers that get open and find the ball. The nice thing about the Bears now, and that's kind of the unknown for me, is, we highly tout Shane Waldron because he was, the most sought after offensive coordinator, and we want him to be amazing. That's to me kind of the question mark right now. And there's no reason to think negatively. I think he's going to do a great job, and he's shown that he has the ability. But how is that all going to work out with the rookie quarterback, and how long will it take? Because we know last year it took 4 games to really get going. How long will that take? And that's what I love about this team right now is I think Caleb Williams, we don't know yet. He's a rookie, but I think he can be that guy. He's shown every reason, even at the freaking Cubs game recently, and even in the offseason stuff you're hearing about with him being supportive of his teammates. And he seems like a leader. He seems like the type that would bring the team along, but we also have a team that's built to support him too. So I don't care about freaking expectations anymore. I want freaking to the moon, man. I really want this to right off the bat be special. I want it to be Pat Mahomes style in his first full year. I realize he sat a year, but his first full year, I want it to be that special season, that 4,500 yards, 5,000 yards. I understand I'm talking crazy, but I want it to be that because we have every aspect, don't we? Don't we have the whole package now? Or other than center and maybe a little depth on offensive line, what are we missing? I mean, we got the defense to support it. We got the offense to be able to support him and to help him adapt and come in quick. I'm just excited.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Adam. It's a great support system for a rookie quarterback. And I do agree with Michael as well that, I think the Bears have made sure they put in place for the rookie quarterback a cast that can support him. But he could also end up being that multiplier. Like we saw, I think the Bears called it the Tez effect, like we saw last year on defense. After they added Montez Sweat, players who were already good, like Jalen Johnson, even got better. Like you said, Gervon Dexter kind of took a great stride towards the end of the season after Sweat was acquired. And I also believe that's going to make a difference for guys like Austin Booker, too. A lot of people look at him. He's a little undersized. He's a project, obviously, and a lot of guys think, well, he's just a rookie. He's a rotational guy, and he probably will be, and that's probably the best thing for him. I know Eric Washington's forte is to, no pun intended, is to kind of develop young defensive linemen. But if Montez Sweat picks up where he left off and he is able to take, the attention that he did, like he did last year and made a guy like Gervon Dexter better, I'd love to see how that affects a guy like Austin Booker, even as a rookie. Honestly, the kid's really athletic. So we'll see. Caleb Williams can have that kind of multiplier effect for the offense, while the offense is also there to support him and make sure he's able to succeed as a rookie. Guys, I do want to shout out a little bit. Adam, you actually have a shout out already here. Cliff says, Adam, long time no see, like 5 minutes. I want to give a shout out, guys, to Squeegee. Squeegee, as always, thanks for joining us. You're here.
Thanks for coming, Squeegee.
Dobbsy, Dustin, Jay Grizz, as always, man. Never miss a beat, this guy, Jay Grizz. I'm impressed by you, Jay Grizz. Bruja and Bruce Pham back again. Bruce, that's 2 nights in a row. We appreciate you joining us, guys. So, yeah, back into really just how good do we think Caleb Williams' ceiling is? And I'm not talking about in the long run because I believe it's limitless when you're talking about his career projection. But how good do we think Caleb Williams? I guess it's going to be heavily based on how quickly he's able to learn Shane Waldron's system. And I think it is a quarterback-friendly system. But how good do we think Caleb's season is as a rookie?
Phenomenal. I say that tongue in cheek because as you listen to more and more interviews, Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are prefacing it with being able to, have a balanced attack. That's the word they keep using, is a balanced attack. But if you've got that many offensive firepower weapons and things are working and you're getting guys open because they have to have single man coverage. I mean, that to me is the big difference, is who are you going to leave on single man coverage? I mean, you got Romo Dunze as a huge bodied X receiver, high point, who can track the ball better than any prospect. Right there with Marv, they're about the same on their tracking to me. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is a little better on his route running. Not the focus of where this show is trying to go, but Romo Dunze is special. But then you got Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, who've already proven themselves. Who do you leave on single coverage? I mean, you've got to double team someone, and you've got to leave someone with single man coverage on that. So with that, how do you have a completely balanced attack? I think the NFL average is 60% pass, 40% run per game, and the highest teams I think run around like 65%. So it's not a huge variance, but I can see once you get this flowing, maybe the first couple games going closer to that 50-50 line. Obviously you're going to throw more than you run every game anyways, but being closer to the 50-50 line. But as this starts working and Caleb gets just the smallest amount of success, he's getting some of these connections to build confidence. I don't think it's going to be that normal confidence curve. I mean, you got Bryce Young, who's going to have a confidence curve of 2 to 3 years just because of the crappy situation he was in. And then you get Caleb. I think he could have that confidence curve really elevated in the first couple of weeks just because of who his receivers are. Then once that happens, we could absolutely see an air assault for the first time in Chicago in a long time. So I really do expect every record to be broken his rookie year. And I don't think I'm talking crazy when I say that. I know it sounds crazy to some people because we have QB PTSD. We're afraid to want nice things. We're afraid that it can happen to us. But I really think just a couple games with these guys and the right situation, and all of a sudden this team is going to take off and have some special things happening.
Yeah, I think going back to talking about Caleb's ceiling, I mean, you want to look at Stroud's rookie year. And again, when you're talking ceiling, you're talking hit the ground running, everything clicks right away. Stroud threw for 4,100 yards. Caleb could throw for 4,400 yards. He had 23 touchdowns. Caleb breaks 30. 5 interceptions. I don't know. With Caleb, I think he's a little bit more aggressive than Stroud. So maybe I'll just say 5 interceptions for Caleb. I mean, that's his ceiling. I mean, he has all the weapons in place. And if he hits that ground running, and Adam mentioned a confidence curve, this is Caleb Williams. It's an overconfidence curve. He's not going to come in shy. He has all these goals right away about winning 8 Super Bowls. That's not someone that has a confidence curve. If anything, he might be overconfident. And that's a great thing to have. You'd rather have that than someone that's timid and scared and shy. That's not Caleb Williams. He's going to come out, throw the ball right away. And if he gets hit in the face or punched in the face, whatever analogy you want to give, he's going to get right back up and keep throwing it. That's who we have at quarterback. And it's awesome to see that. And it makes his ceiling really limitless. Not just this year, but as Brandon alluded to, his whole career is really limitless with his ceiling. It's really cool to see, and it's really cool to just think about a quarterback with that sort of ceiling in Chicago because it's almost really never happened.
Yeah. A lot of those quarterbacks, too, you see him come in like Bryce Young. It might not be like just natural confidence. That's not really what I'm saying with that, but like Bryce Young, he comes in and all of a sudden it's not like Alabama. All of a sudden he's getting pressure on him every play. His receivers aren't open like they were at Alabama. And all of a sudden it sets him back and says, holy crap, this is a different game. Now I have to think through it. And then you start overthinking it. The nice thing with Caleb is he's going to come right into this situation where these guys are going to be open. Like he's going to have someone open on every play. There's no way, if you've got 3 wide receiver sets, there's no way Rome or Keenan Allen or DJ are all going to be covered on the same play. I just don't. I mean, normal plays, you would see that with the team, but those 3 wide receivers, someone's going to get open and it's going to build that confidence. And then you look at guys like Drake May. I feel bad for him going to the Patriots because that's like what Justin Fields came into here. He's going to have that learning curve that's going to be tough for him to overcome because he's gonna have the issues that Justin did. But Caleb's coming into a whole new situation. Add his natural confidence on top of that, and then you get wide receivers wide open. He's going to start zipping some of those with his quick release. He's going to start hitting them. All of a sudden, he's got a 300-yard game under his belt, and then the world is his. I mean, the NFL, he could absolutely own the NFL very quickly, and that's so exciting to think that about a Bears quarterback. Just not used to this.
That's a good point you brought up, is the college situation, how Bryce Young went from Alabama, who's the cream of the crop for however long they were now, and then he goes to Carolina with Adam Thielen as your wide receiver one, Miles Sanders your running back one. A huge drop-off. With Caleb, it's the exact opposite. USC last year, their O-line was terrible. I think Taj Washington is pretty good. But again, he was a later round pick. It's a complete different situation. Now you're getting two wide receiver ones that have established themselves in the NFL, and a guy that should establish himself as a wide receiver one in the NFL in years to come. And when we saw him in college with the NFL caliber first-round wide receiver, what did he do? He won the Heisman. It wasn't even close. One of the best college seasons that we've seen from a quarterback in a long time. And it basically solidified himself as the first overall pick a year in advance of his draft year. So really, and then you add in two more wide receivers, not just one with Keenan Allen. You had two. Words can't really describe just that sort of difference level. And he played in confidence in such a weak supporting cast. His confidence in a strong one, that's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, and to both your point, guys, like Michael was just saying, it's very rare that a number one overall quarterback drafted in the NFL comes from a bad football team and is often drafted to a pretty bad NFL team. So you're right, the script is flipped, and not just for the Bears quarterback situation, but for rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think we've ever really seen this. It was a team that won 7 games, probably could have won a few more. They gave away a couple of double-digit leads in the fourth quarter last season, and that's something that's probably going to have to be addressed this year because that is something that reflects coaching. But you're right, Michael. Caleb went from a pretty bad overall USC team, and any game that don't get it twisted, guys. Any game that team won was on the back of Caleb Williams. He played hero ball all season. He doesn't have to do that in Chicago, and that's what I think is going to make this transition for him all the more easier, is that he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to throw those 50-50 balls. He doesn't have to extend plays every single down. He's going to have, the protection's gotten better. We can all agree. I think the Bears did improve their offensive line. The receiving core, compared to the 2 7th-round picks that were taken out of USC this year, obviously much better. And not just better than, these guys are pros, so they're better than USC's receivers, but they're some of the best pros in the NFL. So Caleb Williams is going to a situation where we can all agree a quarterback will be comfortable. I think there's a lot of veteran quarterbacks existing in the NFL that would love to be in the situation that Caleb Williams is about to be in. Guys, I do want to give a shout out real quick to one of our sponsors. Bridges Scoreboard is your Northwest Indiana Chicago sports headquarters with a Hall of Fame menu and the coldest beer in Chicagoland. I can't stress enough, guys. I've said this to you many a times. Please get down to Bridges Scoreboard. Those guys show us a lot of love, show them some love, and the food is great, guys. Very cool place. If you're a guy who likes one of those old town, kind of hole in the walls, and they're really not, because it's a very big place, but just you walk into this dining room in the back of the building, and there's just sports memorabilia in every corner, on every wall, and it seems like every single Chicago athlete that ever played for any of our teams, whether it be the Bulls, Blackhawks, Bears, Cubs, Sox, they've got signatures of the best, Hall of Fame players all over their walls. So it's a place, guys, that I know that Chicago athletes like to check out. Go check it out yourself. You can at least say that you went to Bridges Scoreboard. And guys, I want to get back to, is the Bears rebuild over? And like I said, starting the show, I feel like after you've kind of addressed all your starting positions on your roster, which Ryan Poles has done. And I want to say this is my one criticism over Ryan Poles. When he was given the job as the general manager of the Chicago Bears, he talked a lot about rebuilding the team from the inside out. And in my personal opinion, I think he actually kind of did quite the opposite. He didn't really build this team from the trenches. He made a lot of budget signings and free agency at offensive line, defensive line between, guys like Billings ended up being a good player, but you had Justin Jones, who played okay. You had Yannick, who we know Adam's not the biggest fan of. myself, I wasn't real crazy about the signing either. And then just a lot of guys. You had Riley Reef, Michael Schofield, Lucas Patrick, Alex Leatherwood. I mean, how many? I can name about 15 offensive linemen that I don't think really went all that well. Well, he was drafting he's got his Keenan Allen, he's got his Romadunza. He was kind of doing almost the exact opposite of what he said. The secondary got stronger, the receiver core got stronger. Well, the players in the trenches, he made the Montez Sweat trade, and I know he had to do that in order for Eberflus to show us they can actually coach a defense, because you got to have some pressure, right, guys? No matter how good your secondary is, it doesn't work without pressure. But do you feel that the Bears, in regards to the trenches, the offensive line, defensive line, do you think that's where the Bears want it to be in this season? And do you think that's either one of those lines, offense or defense? Do you think it's even close to saying we've completed the rebuild there?
No, that's your weakness for sure. And to be fair, I mean, the team was in such shambles that you had to start somewhere. But you're right. Poles said we got to build through the trenches. The hard part is to really build through the trenches. You've got to take those high premium picks, and he didn't have those the first couple of years. So he did find some gems in Braxton Jones, and then he did trade for Montez Sweat. And the other fair part is even Yannick Ngakoue didn't want to come here at first. Like, I think he kind of just came at the end because he didn't really have all the offers that were, being fielded to him that he expected. He was expecting to get a multi-year deal. He was expecting to be the big shot. And where we are now, this is a team where teams or players are going to want to start coming to. I mean, they have options in free agency. It's not like we go out, and even Ryan Poles has addressed this and said you have to throw a little extra money at people when you're a team that's not as desirable to come to. And then he mentioned after this draft, he said, this is a place players want to come to now. You hear the buzz around the Bears. Players want to come to the Bears. And I think that's the first time in recent memory that I can remember feeling that way, that players want to come to the Bears, that the buzz is so good. So I think right now, what do we sit at? 4 premium picks next year. Premium, I mean, day 1 and day 2 picks. So 1 first, 2 seconds, and a third. Probably a third if Ian Cunningham leaves. I get that, but that's not a given yet. So 4 premium picks. I would expect, with the way this team is built right now, the majority of those to be spent on the trenches next year. If we're really going to rebuild the right way and really finish this thing off, we've got to be able to have an edge in next year's defensive line dominant class. Edge first and defensive tackle second in next year's class. That's kind of what it's known for already. I would think of those first 4 picks, those game-changing picks, the real capital, the day 1 and day 2 picks. I would expect 3 out of the 4 of them to be on the offensive line and defensive line, defensive tackle, defensive end, and probably center. But no, we're not there yet. That's our glaring weakness. We don't even have a filled roster for our defensive tackles yet, unless you consider Byron Cowart a starter, but I don't. So I think we still have some work to do for sure.
Yeah, Adam already said, I was going to allude to it too. It's the D-line's not where they want it right now. I don't think it's where any of us want it. But if you're looking at maybe Ryan Poles' plan, I believe he has 2020 or maybe 2025 vision looking at the next year's draft class about just how good that class is going to be. Yeah. And it's mainly due to, in part, because of COVID, because a lot of these kids got their extra COVID year. And now this 2025 draft, it's going to be full of all these kids that went back for that extra year, and all their COVID years are done. When you look at the top, I mean, James Pierce, the kid out of Tennessee, he's probably going to go out of the Bears' range. At least we hope he does. If we're in range to get him, something went terribly, terribly wrong this season. But I mean, this one draft had us getting Michael Williams out of Georgia. If we can get him somehow, dude, that would be insane. And then they had us taking the Kenneth Grant, the kid out of Michigan. Michigan's probably going to have the best defensive front in college football this season. I mean, those would be 2 great picks, but there's still so many other guys around those. And I believe that's part of Poles' plan, is he knows how deep next year's class is, especially on the D-line. And even if it's not great this year, every team has holes, that's fine. He has a plan, I believe, already in place to address it. And again, I don't think we've ever had a GM that's so far ahead of everything else.
He's always 3 steps ahead. Just what you said right there, like, Landon Jackson had a big breakout year from Arkansas, but then he talked about how those kids went back to school. I mean, from Ohio State alone, Jack Sawyer and JT Tielemalu, or however you say his name, like both of them could have gone to the draft this year, and they elected to go back, making this year's draft like it is super stacked in 2025. It's crazy. We're 350 days away from the draft, but you can already feel it. Yeah.
I'll talk draft all year, man.
Well, and Poles has already alluded to it too. He said it several times through the draft too, that because these kids have elected to go back to school, that it's a deep draft next year. So yeah, I don't think we're in desperation mode to have to go and trade away those draft picks to get someone or to leverage the bank for the future for someone, because we know what's coming up. It's just a matter of finding the right fits this year to make this team work. And heaven forbid, I'm going to knock on wood, Montez Sweat gets injured, because that's the only thing that really stops us from having a dominant defense.
Yeah.
Anybody else can fill in and play complementary role with him. DeMarcus Walker has shown he can play elite level. I mean, really starter quality, high starter quality level. And then you've got guys like Austin Booker that can rotate in. And I'm still confident we're going to pick someone else up, but I like some of our undrafted free agents. But really, as long as Montez Sweat stays healthy, next year we complement someone with him with his long contract he got. And that's really the vision is 2025. We should be rebuilt, past tense for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I do think after the June 1st cuts, because guys, we all know teams kind of after these rookie contract or these rookies all get their contracts, these deals are signed. The cap becomes an issue for some teams. You're going to see some players probably on June 1st cut that you wouldn't expect to be available. And I do think that Ryan Poles will definitely address that edge position there. In regards to Dustin made a comment, guys. And thanks again for everybody in the chat, guys. V-Dog has now joined us as well. Wally's here too. Thanks, guys. Dustin made a comment, says we are the second toughest division in football. I think he's referring to the AFC North probably being the first, and the Browns, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers. I think we can all agree might have 4 playoff teams in that division, honestly. Yeah. But I agree with him. This is going to be a fight. No matter how much the Bears work, the Bears have done, how much work the Bears have done to their roster. I feel like pretty much all 3 teams in the NFC North have improved as well. Maybe the Vikings, they lost Kirk Cousins. They went and got J.J. McCarthy, who I thought was kind of a reach, desperation move. I know they wanted a quarterback in this draft. He was bored, but they did improve their roster overall. And out of the 57 DBs they were taken in this 2024 draft, the NFC North selected 5 corners and 4 safeties. So, and I hear a lot of people say, oh, these guys in the NFC North, they saw we got Caleb Williams, so these guys loaded up on defensive backs. I disagree. I think, and Kyle said it when he was on this podcast, and he couldn't have said it better, is the NFC North in general, every team has just got a bunch of guys that are really hard to cover, right? I mean, you look at Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Davion Wicks, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you've got we haven't touched on tight ends. You got Hawkinson and Komet and Laporta. Yeah. A lot of really good players on offense in this entire division. I think that's why these teams really loaded up on these DBs, is they know it's going to be tough to defend guys like Adam, like you said. If Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore on the field at the same time, what the hell do you do? I mean, you're going to have to get real crafty as a defensive coordinator to figure that out. So I do think Dustin's correct in stating no matter how Caleb Williams, no matter how well he plays, and like we've all said, guys, we expect big things. But this division is going to be really tough to win, because one thing we can say about the Lions and the Packers, at least, even the Vikings prior to Cousins' injury, is they all look to be like they were playoff caliber teams. And the Bears are new. Everybody's new. The offensive coaching staff is new. The majority of the offensive roster is new, between Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, Coleman Shelton. I don't know. I actually learned this on your show, Adam, that Coleman Shelton is listed as the starting center on the Bears depth chart over Ryan Bates. I think that's going to be kind of a may the best man win. But do you guys believe that the Bears roster is in position enough to win this division, even after the work that these other teams have put in through free agency? Because we saw the Packers sign guys like McKinney too, who I loved. I like Byard, but that's the guy I actually really wanted on the Bears. So the Packers knew the Packers always do. They know their weaknesses and they know how to fix them. They've done it for the last decade, guys. We've watched the Packers through free agency and the draft just make the right decisions. Do we think that the Bears roster is in a good enough place to win this division, or are we thinking more wild card?
I think it's hard for anybody to overtake the Lions at this point with what they've built. Now, it's funny to say that because we really had the Lions number last year, but as a team overall, how they compete against all the other teams and how we compete against the other teams, I think until dethroned, they've really earned that they've taken this division over. But I don't want the target to be on our back anyways. I want us to be the underdog, taking these guys out, sniping them out one by one. And it is kind of funny. I don't know if you guys saw on the draft when the Packers took Jordan Morgan, their fan base, the shock on their face because they weren't planning on that, and how the Lions jumped ahead of them to draft Terry and Arnold, and it was kind of well known that the Packers were looking at Terry and Arnold. So it's kind of funny to have these interdivision things. But you nailed it right on the head. Every team did get better in the NFC North. And I think what you hit on the head was what I said earlier. Matt LaFleur, I think there's no reason the Packers should be the second best team in this division with their roster. It's not that they're a bad roster. It's just that they are elevated by Matt LaFleur. And that's going to be the difference this year. I truly believe we have an upgrade from Luke Getsy to Shane Waldron, but how is that going to translate with this team? Because what you hear about Shane Waldron is he's a genius on the whiteboard. He's a genius at scheming things up, but he doesn't really have the presence in the locker room to be the dominant guy. But neither's Matt Eberflus. They talk about him as the dad figure, just really smart and respected. And if you listen to Montez Sweat last year in the locker room, he talks about how much the players respect him. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. So, but how well is that coaching going to take us over the edge? Because every one of these teams in the NFC North is stacked. I mean, the Bears have now joined that. If you're going to line up the Lions, the Bears, and the Packers week in and week out, I think their rosters are very equally strong. And the only difference is Caleb Williams hasn't played in the NFL staffs yet, and the Packers probably have the best coaching out of that. But did we just catch up? Did we just catch up with Shane Waldron? We know Matt Eberflus has proven himself as a defensive mind the way we were at the end of the year. So the potential to win the division, yes, but I can't say that's my expectation yet. I can't expect that. I want it, but I would say right now we're the underdog, and I want to see us do it. My desire is to see us do it, but I can't expect it at this point. I have to say that the Lions are probably the favorite, and I would have us ahead of the Packers other than their coaching. But I think we can overtake the Packers this year. I think we can win both games 100%. And maybe that's just the biased fan in me that wants that so bad. But I really think it's the Lions division to lose, and we could absolutely dethrone them this year.
And I think looking at roster construction, it all comes down to what Caleb Williams is. Is he ready right away? Is he firing on all cylinders? If the answer is yes, yeah, they could win this division because he would probably be the best quarterback in the division. Maybe him and Jordan Love might be debated for number one there, but he would at least be second. And I don't think there'd be too many Bears fans that'd be upset with that. But I also think the other thing is when you're looking at strength of schedule, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit are all in the top half of the league in terms of harder schedule. Detroit has the second hardest schedule. So they're running through a gauntlet outside of the NFC North, who, like we said, probably the second hardest division in football. I mean, they go and they play the 49ers. I mean, so do we, but they also play Tampa Bay. They play Dallas. They play Houston, and they play Buffalo. I mean, those are all hard games. And then you add in the NFC North. And it's kind of a similar story with Green Bay and Minnesota. And when you have a roster like the Bears that has a question mark at quarterback, if he hits the ground running, and the Bears, on the flip side, they have the second easiest schedule in football. They play almost no one outside of Houston and the division and San Francisco. That's really it. The other teams they play, I mean, they face New England and Washington, teams that pick second and third. You can't really ask for too many easier draws with the last place schedule that the Bears got. And I think that could be another reason the Bears could win the division.
Yeah, and I got to agree with both of you guys. And Adam, in regards to what you said, my biggest concern for the Bears this upcoming season is not even Caleb being a rookie. It's not have we rebuilt the roster. The biggest concern is and I'm not putting any shade on them, guys. I need to see more. There's things that we all saw as Bears fans over the last couple of years. The record speaks for itself. I do believe the Bears have the worst head coach in the NFC North. I think Dan Campbell. I really like Kevin O'Connell. I really do. I was really surprised to see how good Dobbs played for even a couple of weeks, because I don't think Dobbs is a very good player in the NFL. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback, not a starter anyways. But like you said, like you've alluded to, Matt LaFleur, Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, I think they're all better head coaches than Matt Eberflus is. I do like the fact that, we've got a guy in a division full of offensive minds. We've got a defensive head coach, and after we acquired in a trade, after Ryan Poles got him as edge rusher, he did prove, if we can get some pressure, I can. And he's talked about, I think is it the Mike linebacker, the nickel, and the 3-tech being kind of the anchors on his defense. Still probably a 3-tech. TJ Edwards has been phenomenal. I really like Howard Gordon. We have to see what happens with Dexter. You're still probably a 3-tech away. We'll see if maybe he takes that next step. But I do want to get in, while we're talking about coaches, Adam, Dustin has a question for you. Adam said that he thinks LaFleur is the second best offensive mind in the NFL. Where do you think Waldron rank? I really like this question because we don't, as Bears fans, we don't know a whole lot about Shane Waldron. I'm sure Seattle fans have an opinion for us, but where do you think Waldron ranks as an offensive mind in the NFL?
Well, with what you said, just hit that real quick. You're comparing apples and oranges, though. If you're comparing the other three head coaches based off of their offensive ability, obviously Matt Eberflus is last. But look what he did with this defense. He brought them to be the most elite defense at the end of the year. So I don't know if he's the worst, but he still has a lot to prove. So I agree on that completely. But to this question, where do you think Waldron ranks? The only thing I can say when it comes to that is, man, I was done with Geno Smith. And I think almost everybody in the league was. And Geno Smith was on his way out the door.
And Geno Smith was done with Geno Smith.
And Geno Smith, except he wasn't done right in his own receipt.
Yeah, exactly. He ain't right back.
He didn't write back. So that's the only thing I can compare it to, because he hasn't been, the highlight yet. And he's going to be in Chicago because clearly Matt Eberflus is the defensive mind. So now you're stacking Shane Waldron up against Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur and Dan Campbell, and you're going to stack him up and see how he does in that situation. And all I know is I would take Caleb Williams over Geno Smith 100 out of 100 times. And the fact that we have a generational quarterback coming in to work with someone that worked that many wonders with Geno Smith. I mean, Geno Smith, I did the whole stats thing on him before his great season. And I said he was going to be the bust of the year. That's what I said. I put my words out there and I stuck them right in my foot because he had a very poor pass rating. His adjusted completion percentage was horrendous. Like, to me, he was that guy that was done. He was cooked. He was on his way out of the league. And then lo and behold, Shane Waldron came along and fixed him. So, and I don't know if he's fixed, but he really pulled the best out of him. And that's why I said I think Shane Waldron could work wonders with Justin Fields. And that's why I was excited to see that. But that was more about the haul than not about the quarterback specifically, but the haul of what it would take to trade down. But now we did get that generational quarterback. Imagine what he can do with someone like Caleb Williams, who hasn't played a snap in the NFL, but has played at a very elite offensive level. Yeah, we talk about USC losing, but that really was a lot on that defense. That defense was the lower half of the NCAA, and coming from Pac-12, that's not really acceptable. I know they're probably not happy with that either. But Shane Waldron, to me, has to prove himself, just like Matt Eberflus does. That's the thing with the Bears coaching. Of all the teams in the NFC North, they have to prove themselves more than anybody else this year. But I'm very excited. I want Shane Waldron to be the coach. I saw what he did with Geno Smith, and I want that. I just hope it goes as planned. I hope it goes with the expectation of what we are hoping we signed up for.
And I agree with you, Adam, that we can't forget, guys, Caleb Williams did play with the minds of Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury. So, I mean, he's played for guys who could probably both be NFL, at least NFL offensive coordinators for sure. I think Kingsbury was a head coach. It didn't work out that well, but I'm not going to discredit anything that guy's done with quarterbacks in his career. Guys, I do want to catch up a little bit with some of these comments. We kind of left this to the wayside. So let's see. Chris Jones has joined us. Thanks, Chris. Eric has joined us. Thanks, Eric. Squeegee again. Chris Jones says bolster those lines. Yeah, we did tag on that a little bit, guys. V-Dog's back. Thanks, V-Dog. He says, I think we had another big edge mid-season. I would imagine he's speaking in regards to a trade. We do know that Ryan Poles is not afraid to make a trade mid-season. So if especially like Adam said, if Sweat were to suffer an injury, knock on some wood, please, God, don't want that to happen. But I would imagine that Ryan Poles does something to address that. And even if he's not, if the Bears feel like, the defense isn't where it needs to be and they're just one edge rusher away, I don't disagree with you, V-Dog. I think Ryan Poles, he's shown to me the last season at least that he's pretty aggressive. I think he would be willing to pull the trigger if the offer was right. They have a lot of draft capital, so Poles really has the ability to do whatever the hell he wants at that trade deadline. I think he held the cards in the draft last year. He held the cards in the draft this year, and I think he still even holds the cards at the trade deadline in the 2024 season. Squeegee says we need a Poles 1 year prove it special at edge. Adams kind of referred to this with the Yannick signing last year. I don't like these desperation signings. Like I said, guys, if somebody that we didn't expect becomes a free agent after June 1st, I'm all for it. But I don't want to sign somebody just to say we signed somebody. I don't want to sign somebody who's had a history of being just okay. If the Bears have to move forward with Walker, Booker, and Sweat, then that's just and I do think there's been some talks about whether or not guys can move inside and out. I don't really see it. I'd like to see Dexter just get more time at the 3 tech, so I'd like to see that kind of progress, see how he's able to handle that. But I'm not with anybody who's left in free agency right now. I really don't want to see that last minute signing like we did with Yannick. It doesn't. I mean, you give the guy an ability to get off the field for a little bit, but it didn't prove. I mean, it was a 1 year deal. It's not like they wasted money. Yannick did get injured, so maybe that's the reason the lack of production was there. But I don't love it, guys. We've done a lot of bargain signings over the last 2 years when we had to. I don't think we're in a position of need for bargain signings right now.
Guys sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Guys like Yannick, and even Jacob Martin, who's very similar to Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, very limited sample last year, but productive. But he just can't set the edge. He can't collapse the pocket, and that's a big. It's very selfish play, in my opinion. I'm sure they don't feel that way, but that's what it comes off on tape. Is it's very selfish play where they're trying to pad their own stats. And I know this isn't the purpose of this podcast, but one guy that I did a deep dive, I've looked at all the undrafted free agents, and we know we aren't in a position to have to be dumpster diving anymore. We're not dependent on those undrafted free agents, but I really like this Jamry Chroma kid. I don't know if you've looked into him at all, but he played 2/3 of his snap at defensive end and a third of them at defensive interior and 3 tech. And he's very much like a DeMarcus Walker. So I can see him making the team and even getting a lot of snaps compared to even Austin Booker. Now, I'm not saying long-term because Austin Booker was drafted for a reason, but I think he's very developmental. He doesn't set the edge either. He's very light. He needs to put some weight on.
Where did he play?
Oh.
Who, Booker?
No, Jamry Chroma. I did a
Is he-
freaking video on him. I should have it right here.
He's an NFL free agent.
No, he's signed to our he's
Somebody's on the Bears. Okay.
We signed him. James Madison, tiny school. So we signed him from James Madison, and he's big arms. I mean, long length, 35 and a quarter arms. He's very much a DeMarcus Walker style of player. And so I can see him filling that same type of role as DeMarcus Walker, coming in on some plays, going out on edge. I don't think we're completely done yet, but I don't think we're desperate to have to go sign someone either, just like you're saying, because there are options. And that pickup alone, I think he was overlooked, and I'm really excited to see what he does in camp.
Yeah, I think Dominique Robinson, I know he had a couple of healthy scratches last year, but I thought he was good in his rookie season. So we'll see if the Bears still have interest in giving him an opportunity as well.
He digressed so hard, though. It's hard for me when a player really takes that big of a step back. I mean, he's a liability. And I'm hard on these guys, and I realize the Bears don't. There's a reason he's still coming to camp. They want to give him a chance to prove himself still. But players like Larry Borum and Jatiri Carver and Dominique Robinson, who really had such awful years. I mean, terrible. Like, shouldn't even be on an NFL roster year. That doesn't take away they had the natural ability and size and talent. Dominique Robinson, long arms, long length, good. I mean, but why did he have such a bad year, though? That's what frustrates me. It's almost like I want to just clean slate and bring someone else in that doesn't have those bad habits and bad things they've gone through. But maybe he has the killer mentality to fight through it. I don't know.
Guys, we do have over 100 in the chat right now, so I want to appreciate all the love and support you guys give please take your time to like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell for Chicago Sports Podcast, guys. We bring you content. We do the best we can. It's a lot of hard work. A lot of people put a lot of time into this, guys, and we appreciate you putting your time into being here tonight and every other night, guys. I do want to give a shout out to another sponsor, guys. Chicagoland's most delicious and fun sports dining experience. Head to the river. That is River Street Tavern, located at 102 River Street in East Dundee. I know one of the bartenders there, guys. He's all right. He looks a lot like me. Now, my twin brother, guys, Kyle, will be tending bar for you if you go in there. He makes good drink, stiff drink. So go in there, check it out, guys. They have, I think it's Wednesdays, they have a $2 burger night. I've said this before, guys. You can't get a $2 burger at McDonald's anymore. And it's real food. You know what I mean? So go in there, guys. I think Sunday they have half-price wings, and it's the full wing. I don't want places do this anymore, right? You either get the drum or the flat. It's the full wing, guys. So they got a lot of different sauces too, all made in-house. So yeah, guys, head out to River Street Tavern in East Dundee and try some food out there. They do karaoke. They do trivia night too, and they have done some sports trivia while I was there as well. And then I did have a question here, guys. There's a comment in here that I wanted to address. Sorry, guys. Let me find this real quick. Oh, this here, yeah. Justin Field had the Lions number. Hopefully, Caleb will continue to own them. I do think Eberflus had a lot to do with why the Bears played the Lions so efficiently. But, Michael, do you think that – I know that Justin Fields had an average – of 130 yards rushing per game against the Lions over the course of his career, or the course of his tenure, I should say, as Chicago Bear. Do you think that the Bears still play the Lions the way they have the last couple of seasons? Obviously good enough to beat them like they did last year, and we probably gave them a game last year. We should have beaten them twice. Do you think with Caleb Williams at the helm, do you think the transition from Justin Fields to Caleb is going to affect the Bears in regards to the way they play the Lions in a negative way, or you think they'll be better?
I don't think it's going to change much because, like you alluded to, I believe it was a lot of that defense. I mean, I think Jared Goff threw 5 picks in those 2 games that they played against the Bears. He was awful. And I mean, Goff has been historically awful against the Bears. When you go back to the 2018 game, a little further back, he was awful in that game too. It's just a guy that never seems to play well against the Bears, but I definitely can't hurt. I mean, Trubisky had the Lions number too. It seems like we've honestly had the Lions number for a while here. They really haven't done much. They've won the 1 quarter last year, which really sucked because that took a whole game away from us because we should have been 2-0 against them. And it was really interesting to see how this team that at the time we weren't very high on, they had that super slow start, and it was a team that wasn't doing too much. And then they go out there and slap Detroit in the mouth, sadly blow. And you're like, well, maybe they aren't too bad on defense. And then they do it a second time, and this time they actually blow them out. I mean, that was a shock, maybe one of the shockers of that week of them blowing Detroit out. But I don't think going from Fields to Caleb will affect how they play the Bears. I think it's going to affect how the Lions play the Bears, how they game plan. It's going to be a lot different of a game plan for Detroit on how they prepare for a Caleb Williams-led offense that now you add in 2 more additional wide receivers.
Yeah, and Caleb, it's not that he's not capable of running. You watch him and the way he eludes in the pocket, he's very articulate. He's very calculated. So I think he's going to give the Lions the same trouble. And if the Lions try to balk him and say he's not going to run, he's not like Justin Fields, those same lanes are going to be open with the way Eberflus schemes up this defense. He's going to have the same thing happen with the Lions. And if they say he's not going to run, then he'll end up taking those 5, 10, 15-yard runs and going out of bounds because it's just the way they've left themselves susceptible to us with how they play on their man defense. But I think it's not going to be a negative thing because this defense only got stronger. I mean, Eddie Jackson was a Pro Bowler for us. He was a great player, but Kevin Byard is a clear upgrade. And that's going to make it even harder for Jared Goff. It's going to get them off the field. It's going to get us back on offense. I think we're going to still own the Lions. I think the bigger task is the Packers because we just can't get over that hump. So how do we get over that? It's just going to take one win. It's just going to take the one win. And I really hope
that's how we get over it. Yeah,
just one win. That's how we do it. We just got to win one time.
Yeah. No, if Caleb Williams, I mean, just imagine the Bears fan base if Caleb Williams is able to beat the Packers the first time he plays. That'll be electric. You know what I mean? Even if it's in Lambeau, you're going to hear a lot of Bears chants. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth, guys. While we're on the Lions, and I don't want to get too deep on the Lions because let's be honest. In the end, they're still the Lions, like they were in the NFC Championship game. A lot of guys saying that they've improved their defense because that was obviously the Lions' glaring problem is they couldn't cover the pass. As well as Justin Fields ran against them. Their secondary was their biggest problem. They did draft a couple of good players in the secondary. Where do you think the Lions rank in the NFC after the draft, guys?
Oh, I've got them competing right there for the NFC Championship again. Like, it's not that they regressed and got worse. And you said it earlier that Jordan Love and Caleb Williams should compete for the quarterback of the division. I mean, I don't know how Jared Goff is so overlooked every year. I get he's getting older, but I mean, it's not like he had a bad year last year. He really had a great year. And until proven otherwise, the Lions should be right there competing with the Niners. The Eagles, after the draft they had, should be competitive again. I mean, other than, their misfortune at the end of the year, they looked dominant all year. We can't act like the Bears are there yet. We can't act like they've arrived, like we're all of a sudden competing for the NFC Championship. It would be nice, but we can't expect it. So I'd say the Lions should be right there. I mean, those three teams. The Rams, I like the Rams and what the moves they're making too. And obviously you get a playmaker like Puka that comes along and that really accelerates that rebuild. But yeah, I'd say they're right there with the Niners and the Eagles still to compete for the NFC Championship.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam, too, that Jared Goff is heavily overlooked even after his success. I'm just going to say this. Thank God he'll probably not be playing for the Detroit Lions by the time the Bears are playing in a dome, because I think the weather is one of the factors that gives the Bears the ability to beat Jared Goff. He does struggle, it seems like, when he's playing in cold weather. Thanks for joining us, Bruce Pham. He did just update us, guys. The Cubs win tonight. They did beat San Diego Padres. They had a rough loss last night. Obviously, we're talking Bears here tonight, guys. But thank you, Bruce, for the update. Let's go through a few of these comments, guys. If you see something that stands out, you see something that you want to kind of harp on, let me know. Shane, it's a top 4 OC in the NFC behind McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur. I'm guessing that V-Dog is speaking in regards to his body of work with Seattle. Like you said, Adam, he kind of made Geno Smith relevant again. He definitely got him paid. I would imagine that most people would agree with that. Geno played well, but let's be honest, he failed in a lot of systems before he succeeded. Seattle has owned Detroit for the last few seasons, so these guys are talking about just Geno Smith in general. Geno Smith's a decent QB. Oh, look at this. The Cubs walked it off in the 9th, guys.
What was the I know he comes from the same tree as McVay, but what was the connection again with Shane Waldron and that same coaching tree? I mean, I did a whole breakdown on it, but I forgot the connections there.
You know what I heard? So I watched what's her name? Kay Adams, Up and Adams. You guys ever seen her show?
Yeah.
She did a lot of interviews the last day with the Bears players. If you haven't seen them.
So she's from Chicago. She's done a lot, and she was interviewing Matt Eberflus, and she asked him, Matt Eberflus, did you know Shane Waldron before his interview process? Is that how you met him? He said, no, I met him through the interview process, but we have connects. And then Matt Eberflus said, because he worked for Belichick and I worked for Saban. Is anyone here familiar with Shane Waldron working under Bill Belichick? Was there a point, was he part of the Patriots organization?
Yeah, wasn't he a lower assistant of the Patriots? Yeah.
He was with the Patriots for a while. He was. I just literally pulled up his history. He was an intern with them from 02 to 03, operation assistant 04. And yeah, he was there for like almost 8 years.
Yeah, and I knew Eberflus worked for Saban. I did not know there was a Waldron Belichick connection there. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm not sure, Adam. I know that he came from the Matt Michael's got it pulled up. What was the relation there to?
Oh, it's to McVay. He was with the Rams for a while. He was their tight end coach in 17, passing game coordinator in 18, and then in 19, their passing game coordinator and QB coach. He was there for a little while with McVay.
Yeah, but then there's even more tree than that, like going back from McVay, like the whole success of that tree, like it's just absolute success from anybody that comes from that same tree. So I got to look that back up again. It's the Shanahan tree. It's the Kyle Shanahan and his son and how they broke off.
He was with was it with Washington? That's where all of them were, right? It was kind of, was it in Washington and then they all split off? I forget what team they were all a part of.
Yeah, it was that. Well, that was Robert Griffin, right? Because Kyle Shanahan was working for his dad while Robert Griffin was.
Oh, yeah, it says Waldron was the offensive quality control coach for the Redskins in 2016. So maybe that's the
There it
connection.
is. Yeah, there it is. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and like you said, Adam, anybody who's come from basically the Shanahan tree, because they're all branches off of that, has really shown success. I mean, we've seen McDaniels and Miami. These guys obviously know how to coach offense. So, yeah, just another reason to be excited for Shane Waldron. As a matter of fact, Divine says, can we really trust Shane Waldron? Every Seahawk fan I talk to is glad he's gone. That might be a little bit of resentment, guys. And I don't know how you could be upset with Shane Waldron when you got a quarterback who's playing in his 30s. I don't know how old Geno Smith
was. It was the same issue in Seattle too. They had a worse offensive line than we did last year.
And they were all injured. Everybody was injured on that offensive line. And I think a lot of people think that Shane Waldron's not good at running the football, but I thought Walker had a decent season. Charbonnet looked like he was coming on. He does. Like you said, Adam, I'm going to relate to the fact that he really didn't have the interior offensive line to run behind. So I think that's kind of why he went pass heavy. And he had three good receivers, Smith, Najigba, Tower Lockett, DK Metcalf. Why wouldn't you pass the ball on that team? Knowledge Untamed says, issue with having Booker and Yannick as your backups is neither can set an edge. So I think you've kind of already related to this, Adam. Yes, he says someone like Calais Campbell. He actually still playing at a fairly high level, guys, for being as old as he is. I don't know. The guy is old. I don't know how old he is.
Isn't he like 37 or 38? Yeah.
I think he's going into his 38.
40. He's been around for quite some time, man, but he is a monster of a man.
That's why I think Booker, you set him in there on third down is what you're going to do. You're going to see, depending on how camp goes, but I think you're going to see him break into the team by getting him in there on third down where he doesn't have to set the edge before he puts on that weight, because he has some elite moves. Like, he really does have a nice arm moves, and he has a lot of bend. So I think the long-term potential for Booker is way upside, which is why they took him. I even had him, like, one of the polls I did on my channel was, who do we take at 75? And Booker was one of the options, and Amagaji was one of the options. We ended up taking two of them, and Booker wasn't taken until the fifth round. So I really think that's where you come in, and we do need someone that can set the edge a lot better too. And that's, I like this Jamari Chroma guy, because I think he had like 7% missed tackles, which is ridiculously low for an edge. So yeah, I agree with what Knowledge Untamed is saying right there.
I had a buddy text me where Shane Waldron and Nick Saban crossed paths. Was that Toledo? It was something. It wasn't before. It was before Saban was coaching a major program, I believe. I think it was Michael. Are you on that already?
Yeah, I'm looking, because he was at UMass, Buckingham, Hartford, and Hartford. So I don't know where he'd crossed with Saban in any of those jobs. So
some of these guys in the chat, though, asking questions about Waldron, though. Waldron was the most sought after offensive coordinator. So whatever Seattle fans had beef with him, I think that's just kind of one of those post facto things where they're already moving on. Head coach change, which means it wasn't like he was fired. Shane Waldron wasn't fired. So it's not like Luke Getsy where he gets hired somewhere else. And as a Raiders fan, you have to convince yourself to like him. Shane Waldron was sought after. He was the number one sought after offensive coordinator this last year. And he chose to come to the Bears. So it's not like one of those situations just because the head coach changed and the Seahawks weren't going with Waldron. So we hired him as an offensive coordinator. So I think, and yeah, someone else said the beef with JSN, Jackson Smith and Njigba was upset because he wasn't getting enough playing time at first. There's always different things, but Shane Waldron is very respected for his play calling and for his scheme fits. So I'm very excited for Shane Waldron, to go back to that original question.
Yeah, in regards to Smith and Njigba, we were talking last night about Roshan Johnson. Somebody asked why he didn't get the respect he deserved as a Bear, I think, in his rookie. The bottom line is, guys, when you've got players ahead of you like Foreman and Herbert, quality starters, quality veteran starters in the NFL, it's just the process. You don't really want, unless you're taking a guy top 10, you really don't want to throw a rookie into an immediate starting role. You'd like these guys to develop over time. I think between Lockett and Metcalf, I think the Seahawks knew they were kind of ease Smith Najigba into that system. I think Waldron knew that, and I'm all for it. If he wants to do the same thing as the Chicago Bears offensive coordinator, if he wants to kind of work Rome Odunze into this offense slowly. I 100% support that because he's got quality players ahead of Odunze on the depth chart. So I'm okay with that.
Some guys are just humble and quiet too, and some guys like Jaskis Smith and Najigba aren't humble and quiet. I don't know if anybody realizes this, but which running back of the Bears led in snaps last year? And that was Roschon Johnson. He's just not a boisterous, loud dude that has to have all the attention. He's a put his nose down, prove himself, I'm going to get better every game type of guy. And you saw those explosive games come at the end of the year where he had big plays out of nowhere. But a lot of those he was in there blocking. Like he was our best blocking running back last year. So he was the guy who would take the snaps. I'm a rookie. I want to get any snap I can. I'm going to sit here and block. I'm going to do my job. And yeah, so I think part of that's personality clash too.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Adam, because even as a player on Texas, he was behind probably the best running back in college football when he was playing behind Bijan Robinson. And it seemed like the scouting world in the NFL, like the general managers, everybody kind of knew who he was, but you didn't hear any stink coming from Texas about Roschon Johnson thinking he should play more football because he understands his role and he's going to do it the best of his ability. And like you said, he's going to keep his head down and just do what's asked of him. And you have to respect a player like that. I do think you're going to see more, even with DeAndre Swift. I think you're going to see some more Roschon Johnson this year. He's really good in pass protection. He established that by the end of last season. Just a few more of these chats, guys. I might be alone on this, but I like Walker on first, second, and the rookie on third. Just rotate the opposite side, save the money. I think you're going to see if they don't make a signing, and Dustin said earlier he likes the idea of Bud Dupree, who's had a couple of rough years, but I do think Walker, if they don't make a signing after June 1st, I do think Walker's going to be the starter, and the rookie referring to Austin Booker will definitely see some time, probably on both sides, I would imagine. Montez Sweat, I think can't remember the number. After the Bears acquired Sweat, he only played I think it was 82% of their snaps. So Sweat could probably play a little more, but it's not something that I think Eberflus likes to do. I think he likes to give these guys a break. And I know that Sweat has the motor to be on the field the whole game if you need him to. In regards to, okay, here's a good one, guys. Adam, you actually brought this to my attention. You were the first person that pointed out to me. We added two very good defensive linemen, undrafted free agents. Randolph is another one. I think he's referring to Keith Randolph out of Illinois, the guy who played alongside Johnny Newton, a player that I've liked for 2 years. He did suffer a pretty bad injury last season. But, a lot of guys suffer injuries in college and end up having successful NFL careers. So I'm glad the Bears are going to give him a shot. I think you're going to see him a lot in the preseason. You're going to see him probably right off the bat in the Hall of Fame game. And I'm excited about what that guy can bring to this team because, like you said, defensive tackle is one of the positions we could probably be a little stronger at, as well as edge. What are your thoughts on Trey Hendrickson, Jeff Tar? I would like to hear what Michael, Adam, what do you guys think about this? I've been hearing a lot about Trey Hendrickson. What do you guys think?
I don't think anything happens. I think it's smoke. I think he's going to end up staying. I don't think they trade him before the season. Maybe if something progresses through the season, maybe they do that then, but I'd fully expect him to play his first snap as a Bengal in week 1.
I don't think this is where we're going to be spending money on.
Yeah.
Is the defensive line at this point. I think we're really committed to the draft next year with the defensive line, and we already have spent with Montez Sweat heavily. I'm not saying they're opposed to it if the right situation. I just don't see Trey Hendrickson as the right situation. It's kind of the only available situation you're hearing about because he's unhappy, but I don't think it's the right situation for the Bears at this point. I think maybe a trade at the deadline could happen, and then we pay someone on the defensive line. Poles and Flus have gone over and above and beyond to really talk about how that pressure from the interior is important. So I don't think they're opposed to doing it. I just think they want to see what they've got from Big Dexter after the end of last year. 4 sacks in the last 5 games. Really see what they've got from him. And then mid-season, if they need to make a trade, I can see him. But I think the Trey Hendrickson thing, I agree. I think that's smoke at this point.
Here's another comment from Andre G. Thanks, Andre, for watching tonight. He says, Montez seems to think that Gervon is going to have a breakout season. I have heard this. I have heard Montez Sweat talk a little about Gervon Dexter. And I don't think he means really in regards to technique or the position itself, but he did say something along the lines of Gervon Dexter. A young Gervon Dexter reminds him of his younger self. And that's cool because, like I said, we know Sweat's got the motor. He puts in the work. So I'm sure he's referring to how much work Gervon Dexter is putting in, especially in the offseason and even off the field. I know the guy works his butt off, guys. Like, we saw progress after the Tez effect, after we acquired Montez Sweat, like you said just now, Adam. Gervon, I think Pro Football Focus, I don't remember what the number was. I'm sure one of you guys could tell me. There was a couple weeks span where out of all rookies, he led in pressures, even over Jalen Carter. Was like an egregious. I think Pro Football Focus had him rated like an 88 or something over a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Probably at the end of the year, but I do remember the interview with Montez Sweat, and he was praising Gervon hard. And he even talked about how he played edge a couple of games and how he was even a beast coming off the edge. So, yeah, I think Gervon, and then there's a couple of players on this team that I just don't think are getting the recognition they deserve. Gervon is one of those. Tyreek Stevenson to me and I'm not saying this loosely. I really think he's a top 10 cornerback in the league right now. The way he ended the year, I really think Tyreek is a top 10 cornerback. And then Roschon Johnson, I think a lot of people are sleeping on him because we got DeAndre Swift, but I really think Roschon is going to carve out a nice little role for himself in this offense and be really dominant and productive as well.
Yeah, we can't forget the guys. The Bears did spend a pretty high draft pick. I think it was a third rounder on Zach Pickens as well. And I know we didn't get to, they did a lot of rotating. And I didn't like what the Bears did last year. It seemed like they rotated these guys per drive as opposed to kind of seeing how everybody fit together. It was either Billings and Jones on one drive, and the following drive would be Dexter and Pickens. I kind of wanted to see a more mix and match, like the rookie play alongside the veteran. But I wouldn't count Pickens out either, because as strong as Dexter is, and we know he is, he's probably one of maybe the strongest defensive tackle in the NFL now that Aaron Donald's retired. The guy is just pure strength. He gets off the line a little slow, and we know that his form and technique was the biggest issue the Bears had when they drafted him. But Pickens, on the other side of things, the form was what they praised when he was drafted. The guy, he's got a tremendous burst off the snap. He keeps his body low, unlike Dexter, who finds himself getting a little higher than he needs to be. Dexter's got the form. He just probably needs to add a little bit of strength. And Pickens, who knows what he could be one day in the NFL.
At the end of the year, you saw a little bit more, though. They were rotating Dexter in for the pass pressure plays, and they were rotating Pickens in for the run plays to defend against the run, because they both really carved out a niche. It'd be kind of nice if you can combine both those guys together, but they do have their individual things to work on, and Pickens is clearly a better run defender, and Dexter is clearly a better pass rusher.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what they were drafted as. They were drafted as raw prospects. They were super athletic freaks on the D-line, but their craft wasn't exactly sharpened. And when you have these developmental players, and we're going to see it again with Austin Booker, I think he fits into the same category. They might not start out playing a lot. They might not look so great when they are playing, but as the season progresses, are they looking better, and are they playing more and looking better in those more snaps? And that's exactly what Pickens and Dexter did. And I think we're going to see a very, very similar playing time and sort of style of rotation with Austin Booker this year.
Guys, Knowledge and Tame says, who is the defensive end we signed in free agency? I believe he's talking about Jake Martin. Was Jake Martin, it was defensive end primarily for Indianapolis?
Well, yeah, and he played at New England for a while too. He's really kind of more of a 3-4 style defense on that outside linebacker, but he has played with Indianapolis with his knuckles in the grass, because Indianapolis runs a 4-3 like us. So yeah, and he played well last year with Indianapolis. So I think he's really more of a flyer player too, like one of those that we're taking a shot on. A lot of high upside but low risk guy that we're bringing in, but definitely not the guy that you expect to change the room. You're just kind of hoping you can pull something good out of him. And with Eric Washington, as the defensive line coach now, I think there's a lot to be excited about with trying some of those guys out. So I don't have super high hopes on Jacob Martin, because he reminds me a lot of Yannick Ngakoue with his play. But with Eric Washington coaching, I'd take a shot with him 100%.
And then the next comment, guys, is Notorious TBG. Love the name, by the way. Says Booker greater than Robinson. I'm not sure if he's referring to Dominique Robinson. We all hope so, right? But he might be referring to, I think, Darius Robinson, maybe, who was drafted this year to, I think, the Cardinals as well. He's got to be referring to Dominique Robinson on our team, and there's a lot to that. There's a lot to unravel there, because really I think that's the reason Dominique Robinson's probably off the roster.
because you've already had your couple of years of development with him, and he had a huge regression year. He's got good size, got good arm length, but he hasn't really done it. Now you've got a raw prospect like Booker that you get to reset that clock with. You've got 4 years with him. I think that's the reason you take a raw prospect like Booker and say that exact thing, Booker greater than Robinson, because you've got four years with him now to develop him.
Yeah, and there's a couple of positions the Bears just kind of reset the clock on, which I love. Ryan Poles obviously knew what he was doing there. Guys, a couple of shout outs for us, and I just want to, again, show my appreciation for everybody who's in the chat tonight, everybody who's watching. Knowledge Untamed says 28 likes. Don't be lazy. It's free. Thanks for the support, Knowledge Untamed. Bruja says smash that like button. Yeah, guys, please, again. And Adam, once again, thanks for joining us here tonight. Mike, always
lots of fun.
But yeah, guys, please, 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 if you like the content we provide, there's a lot more of it. Please hit that like, subscribe, smash that notification bell, so whenever we do have a show, you guys are aware that it's going to be on. We do typically try to stick to, I think, Monday, Thursday, Friday night. But if anything ever comes up like an NFL draft, we do add a couple of shows. So make sure you are notified of that, guys. I want to give another shout out to Serendipity Ice Cream Power today. Go step into Serendipity Ice Cream Power and discover what's delicious summertime tastes like. Serendipity is serving up heaven. I say this every time, guys. Not the biggest ice cream guy myself, but they make a funnel cake sundae. And like I've said before, you can throw a funnel cake basically on top of anything, and I will eat it, except for bacon, Michael. Okay, so don't get any ideas.
I can't believe
What?
Adam, I mentioned last night to the
Bacon
world.
goes with anything.
Yeah, I mentioned last night to the world that I don't like bacon. I think I got a couple of your un-American comments and all kinds of things.
I'm giving you as big as eyes as I can say. Even my 3-year-old loves bacon. Come on.
Yeah, to each their own, man. After draft signings, guys. Okay, so we got another one out. Knowledge Untamed. You are killing it, man. After draft signings, Bears have $21 million in cap. Can easily create more, giving sweat cash for cap. Not sure what. Does anybody know what that's related to?
I don't have the same cap numbers. I have us more around 17 million, but we're in good shape. But we do like to run with 8 to 10 million into the season, for unforeseen injuries and anything that might need to come along in the season. So, but I do expect us to make a move here, like you talked about with the the cuts that are going to be coming up, June cuts as they like to call them. I do see a move. I don't think it's going to be a big move though, because you're going to see a reserve that Poles holds.
MC Fact says, guys, playoffs are the expectation. I would agree with that. There's a lot of hype around this Bears team. They put the pieces in place to succeed. Caleb Williams obviously has to play a little better than the average rookie does. I think he will. He's much more talented than any prospect I've seen probably the last decade. But I agree with you. Playoffs are probably the expectation. But let's say the Bears win 9-10 games and they don't make the playoffs, but Caleb Williams plays well over the course of the year. You might be looking at the seat getting a little bit hotter for Matty Rafus. But how would you guys feel? How satisfied would you be if the Bears, let's say, win 10 games and don't make the playoffs?
Win 10 and don't make the playoffs? That's pretty hard to win 10 and not make the playoffs, but yeah. I'll be dissatisfied. I mean, if we didn't make the playoffs and the scenario you said Caleb Williams played well, if it's not Caleb Williams' fault, then what happened? Because this defense is there. The defense is one of the best defenses. So what happened then at that point? I'd really have to be curious how we didn't make the playoffs. I expect the playoffs. I don't expect us to go deep into the playoffs, but you talk about wants, where we should be, and then expecting. I do expect the playoffs this year, and maybe that's a little ahead of myself, but with all the moves we made, with the rebuild that we've done and where we are, I absolutely think that we should have at least 10 wins, and we should make the playoffs at a minimum. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, you could argue they should have been a playoff team last year, right? I mean, they don't blow those 3 games. I think a lot of Bears fans have said this a lot, but they don't blow those 3 games. They are in the playoffs, and God knows who their quarterback is. Yeah, and God knows what their team looks like right now. I mean, they might have kept Fields because he got them to the playoffs. So it's a whole different sort of thing, and they won 7 games last year, and the roster only got better. And you presume your quarterback play is going to be better, which may have been one of your weaknesses last year. And there's really no excuse to not win at least 9. Although if they somehow win 10 and don't make the playoffs, I would be absolutely floored that the NFC had that many good teams and the Bears got skunked. But they win 10 games and don't make it, but Caleb Williams looks all the part of a franchise QB. I think that's still something you can build on. Hopefully, if that happens, it's just the NFC was really good for some reason. But yeah, if they win 10 games, I expect them in 7 or 6 seed.
Guys, Knowledge and Tame says I really think 4 wide receivers, maybe Velus over Scott, just because Waldron's still a gadget and still wants a gadget and around guy. I don't think the Bears are going to limit themselves to 4 receivers on the roster, even on the active roster. I know they'll have a few on the practice squad, but Tyler Scott's not done yet, guys. I know he didn't really impress, but the passing game is pretty lackluster in general.
On this one, I think he's saying wide receiver 4 as far as the depth chart. But this is something I've started saying on my channel, and I freaking love this concept right here. Velus over Scott because of his gadget end-around slant yak guy. So you saw that last year with Luke Getsy near the end of the year. He would line up Velus Jones in the backfield, do some jet sweeps, do some pre-motion snap, and he would get 10 yards. Like he would literally, with his speed, just cut the edge, 10 yards up the field, then get tackled. Never again the rest of the game. We're not going to do that again. It worked. So let's not do that ever again the rest of the game. But I can see Velus Jones being a running back hybrid style of wide receiver there in the backfield for us. And that would be fun. This is like my dream. What you just posted, Knowledge, that's like my dream of having Velus Jones do some of that stuff out of the backfield. Maybe he's not, the wide receiver that is our X receiver going down to the end zone to lay on his back and drop the ball off of his chest and not get the touchdown. Yeah. But to be able to do jet sweeps and to be able to very similar to a punt return, kick return type of role where you've got the ball and then you're just making everyone miss you. I would love to see Velus Jones do some more of that.
Plank agrees with the Knowledge and Tamed. I think he agrees with you as well, Adam. I'd love to see Velus tear it up this year. And I do think Michael said this a lot. Michael, go ahead. Dive a little deeper into why you think Velus Jones still has a roster spot on this team.
I think it's just strictly because of the kick return. I mean, the guy's an athletic freak. I didn't agree with when they took him. When I think was it a 3rd or a 4th?
Yeah, 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, because his draft profile was he's athletic and he's good at kick return. Like, why do you take that in the 3rd round? Especially with what the Bears roster was, it was about as barren as it gets. But he's still very, very athletic. Again, he had some boneheaded, stupid, dumb plays that really screwed them at times, and it just kind of pissed you off watching him at times. And even Justin Fields, I think, kind of called him a dumbass. I think it was on that 33rd podcast that he does with Amon-Ra. But so he catches a lot of slack even from his teammates. But again, these new kick return rules could really, really open up a opportunity for Velus to finally show off that kick return ability, because these new kick return rules favor the kick return. They want these returns. They want these guys to get the ball and have electric plays, and that should open up an opportunity. If he can't capitalize on that, then I think all is lost with him. But I think it's a time to be optimistic about Velus, which isn't really something I thought I'd ever say.
Yeah, isn't it? I'm not. I watched a UFL game to kind of wrap my head around this. I'm still a little confused about. Isn't you have to put the ball between the 20 and the end zone? There is no touchback, right?
Yeah. What's the penalty though? I don't know all the rules on it yet, but yeah, they have to let it land between the 0 and the 20 or the 25, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and you have to allow a kick return, I believe, right?
Yeah, they don't get to run until the receiver catches the ball. You can't move off of the line because you're basically on a line now. You're down to the 25-yard line, and you can't go to tackle them until they've received the ball into their hands.
So there's not so much high-speed collisions, right? Is the idea that is people won't be given the time to kind of reach that. Some of these guys are hitting 20 miles an hour in that kickoff.
The penalty for a touchback is the ball is automatically spotted at the 40. So it's like the old kick out of bounds rule. So that's why, that's a pretty big penalty. Especially with Torrey Taylor, a team does that. They're at least starting inside their 5 or 10 if the Bears go 3 and out.
40-yard line. Wow, that's we're going to see a lot of kickoff returns this year, guys.
And we're gonna be the first team to witness it because of the Hall of Fame game. We're going to see what that looks like firsthand for the Bears. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I am excited for that. Obviously, being Bears fans, guys, we get to see the best of the best, right? So, and it was like literally kind of as Devin Hester's career ended that the kickoff became. I mean, what kicker in the league today is not going to kick it out of the end zone? You know what I mean? I think Santos had one kick the entire season that wasn't a touchback on the kickoff. So the way these guys, the strength of these kickers is going, there was no way anybody was going to be returning the ball in the next couple of years. These guys can boot it 60, 70 yards easy.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be fun to watch how this changes the game. It's going to be fun to watch kick returns again. Like, it's just, that's where you go get a drink or go to the bathroom, in the game right now. It is. You don't even care. It's just, okay, this is the break. And now it's going to be, I want to watch this again, especially when you have people like Velus Jones or Dante Pettis now. So much fun to have him coming back to the Bears. And even Ian Wheeler, I think is his name, the undrafted free agent kid that we signed because of that. Like, he is purely kick return. That's all we're bringing him in for. It's just to see how he competes in camp at kick returns. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think the guy averaged, like, he was a running back in college. I think he averaged like 4 carries per game or something. So yeah, he is definitely a guy the Bears liked strictly for his return ability, a special teams guy. So yeah, I'd be excited. I do agree with Michael too. It would stink to see the Bears. They spent a 3rd round pick on this kid. He's made a lot of mistakes, but you kept him here, right? He wasn't cut by the Bears. He's not released. He's still a Chicago Bear. It would kind of suck to see the first year that the kick return's relevant again to not see Velus Jones on the roster, because that is probably the one thing you can provide. I'm guessing the Bears never allow that guy to touch a punt return again. He just can't seem to field the ball. Dobbsy says, interesting considering that Dexter was getting one-on-one time with Yannick, and I believe one of the Colts' old greats, Robert Mathis. I'm not sure who's referring to. Oh, Shaq. I keep hearing a lot of guys keep saying Shaq Leonard in regards to like edge rushers, and I know he blitzed the quarterback, but correct me if I'm wrong. Shaq Leonard played linebacker for
outside linebacker.
He was an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah. Knowledge and Tame, once again, Adam agrees with you. And Stevenson, Dustin said it earlier too. I agree as well. The Bears have just done a phenomenal job. These guys scouting defensive backs for the Chicago Bears deserve raises. They're probably going to be a GM maybe one day, because Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Johnson was a different regime, but Tyreek Stevenson, even Terrell Smith looks like there was a play last year where he forced a fumble and recovered it. It was like the first time he was on an NFL field during a game. So they're doing a great job at not just drafting, but developing their defensive backs.
Hey, don't blink with this Reddy Stewart kid either. This is another undrafted free agent. And I'm not trying to be like this super hype guy for the undrafted free agent class, because we're not in that place where we have to have them anymore. But that's just what I've been doing this last week and a half, is watching the tape on these undrafted free agents. And this Reddy Stewart kid, and it's, of all the needs in our secondary, it probably is nickel. Josh Blackwell has done a great job of backing up Kyler Gordon, and Kyler Gordon's done very well. But if you think one player who's not really locked down a position, Kyler Gordon to me is probably an average nickelback. He's not proven, but I'm also going to say I think Kyler Gordon's going to have that breakout year this year. I think he has everything in him with how he's a ball hawk. He just needs to do a little better on the coverage. But this Reddy Stewart kid, he's very versatile. He can play outside, he can play nickel, and he's a hitter, man. He hits principle lays with him for sure. Like, he's fun to watch. If you get a chance to go watch some of his highlights, Reddy Stewart is going to be fun to watch too.
Yeah, I was hearing you discuss him on the last podcast you did. I was watching. Guys, we are going to kind of start wrapping it up here. Adam, I do want to know where everybody here at watching Chicago Sports Podcast tonight can find you. Where else they can find you?
Yeah, just Google my name or YouTube my name or whatever in the search bar, Adam Mason, or you can type at beardown sports. You'll find me there. Appreciate anybody that comes over and checks out my stuff too.
Yeah, and Adam, we appreciate you joining us tonight on a Tuesday to discuss the Bears rebuild.
Yeah, 100%. So much fun to be here. Anytime we can yuck up the Bears and talk about how this team is, it's fun finally. We're finally in a place where it's exciting and we're not in the drudges saying, well, maybe next year we can add a little bit more and maybe we can do this and this. We're in a fun place where it's true excitement. It's not fake fan excitement. It's real. Like, it's here for Bears fans.
Yeah, the rest of the league is also excited for us. I felt like last year it was a little different, where it was kind of wishful enthusiasm or delusion that we were going to be really good last year, and kind of fell apart right in the beginning with the first 4 weeks. But this time it is a lot different. The rest of the league thinks that we should be good, and just hope it's not a repeat of last year and it doesn't fall on our face again. This time it's for real.
Is there anything else, guys, tonight before we hang it up that you feel like anything you saw in Chicago sports news? There is actually something I would like to mention, though, that you guys think that our fan base should be aware of.
Blackhawks almost went back to back with the lottery, but
Yeah, that's what I
ultimately
wanted to say.
they'll take second. They'll take
Yeah,
second.
They
I'm
missed
still
out on the
excited
first overall pick. They are the second overall pick. And Michael, you'd announced last night that there's a lot of good players in this NHL draft. So we know they'll find some talent there. Adam, what about you? Anything that you've read in Chicago sports news that's relevant tonight?
No, appreciate you having me on, guys. It's a lot of fun. Every time, the one thing I will mention, every time you hear more and more about Caleb Williams, the stories about when he's a teenager, putting priorities straight, it just rallying this team, how much the guys love him as they're going out with him. Like, he's embraced this team. He's really a leader of this team already, and that's fun to watch. So that's the big thing I'm enamored by when I'm looking at all these headlines. That's the biggest thing I'm seeing, and I'm loving every piece of it because it feels like a natural fit, and he's just charismatic, and he's a leader, and he's gonna fit in well. And that was kind of the fake concern a lot of people brought up before we drafted him. So it's a lot of fun to watch how this is progressing.
Yeah, Matty Refus said on Up and Adams, he's just a really funny guy when he's not sincerely focused on football. He's just a funny guy, which is cool to hear. You know, that's obviously somebody who's going to make their way into a locker room and have some fans. Cole Kmet was so close to telling a story about the dinner they had. Did you guys see that on the Up and Adams show? He was she's asking rapid firing questions, and she's Googling at him. Clearly, this lady's like kind of obsessed with Cole
she's
Kmet.
in love with him.
Yeah, but she keeps grabbing his hands and showing how big they are. And the guy has tremendously large. She called him Mickey Mouse. And seriously, this guy's hands are huge. But he was so close to telling a story about Caleb Williams at that dinner, and she cut him off and kind of ended the interview because I guess Matty Refus did like a watch thing. But I was dying to hear what he had to say about that. It looked like his face lit up. It looked like he was something he really wanted to share. So that stinks. Maybe we'll hear it one day, guys. I do want to give a quick shout out, guys, to our sponsors, Pay the Bills, as Trax refers to. Obviously, Bridges Scoreboard. I mentioned Northwest Indiana Chicago Sports Headquarters, guys. River Street Tavern. Get down there. We did have a shout out for River Street Tavern during the show as well, guys. Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, TC's World of Wonders. For all your sports memorabilia, jerseys, hats, anything in regards to NFL gear, guys, go check them out. Much cheaper than your typical supplier. Underdog Fantasy, guys. I've said it before. If you're a guy who does the typical ESPN, Yahoo Fantasy, the more fantasy, the merrier, right? You can have a league in any platform. So check out Underdog Fantasy as well, guys. And then Budget Cars and Worth Stadium Club as well, guys. Adam, once again, I really want to thank you for joining us tonight and bringing your fan base. A lot of Adam Mason fans out there in the chat. So that's cool, guys. Thanks for following Adam here, guys. Michael, as always, appreciate your time. We know you're busy with school and stuff. 2 shows.
Just got to get through this week.
Done 2 shows back to back. I don't think I've ever done 2 shows in a week with you, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's getting finals week in college. It's a lot. It's a lot, but got to get through this week and then all done. And then free time, and I can hop on almost whenever.
Well, best of luck to you with that. Adam, as always, a pleasure working with you, man. And I'm sure we'll be seeing each other very soon. I'm sure you interact one time. Thanks again for having us on your show, man. I had a blast. It's really cool what you do there, man. I don't know if you guys go check out Adam Mason's show. During the show, he brings up everything he's talking about. He's got it laid down in front of you guys for people like me who are slow learners and need to see it. Adam, Michael, thanks. Chicago, thanks everybody for everybody in the chat, all the viewers tonight, guys. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, everybody have a good night.
Yep, bear down.
Bear down.
Bear down.